Chair Evans, we're ready when you are.
Okay. I will now call the meeting to order. It is it 5 o'clock?
Yes, sir.
It is 5 o'clock. I will call the meeting to order. May we have a roll call of the names, please, for the committee?
Committee Member Hunter Copper. Here. Committee Member Rivera. Committee Member Heckman. Here. Vice Chair Knox.
Here.
Chair Evans.
Here.
Let the record show Committee Member Rivera is absent.
Thank you. I would ask you to please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Of the United States of America.
To the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. I would ask if there are any changes to the agenda today that you've received in your packet.
I believe we have no changes, Chair.
Okay. Will the clerk please read the statement of participation?
This is the opportunity for members of the public to comment on items not appearing on the regular agenda. Because of restrictions contained in California law, the Commission may not discuss or act on any item not on the agenda, but may briefly respond to statements made or ask a question for clarification. The Chairman may also request a brief response from staff to questions raised during public comment or may request that a matter be agendized for a future meeting. Public comment will be limited to 3 minutes. And Chair, we did not receive any request to speak forms, and we currently have no attendees present.
Okay. We'll move on to the approval of the August 19th meeting minutes. Are there any changes or corrections to those minutes you found in your packet? All right, we have no changes, and there are no members of the public to comment. So I would ask for a motion to approve the minutes.
So moved.
And a second.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion by Vice Chair Knox, a second by Committee Member Heckman. Please vote on your screen. Committee Member Hunter Copper, do you have the vote option on your screen? We're voting on approval of the minutes? Okay. And motion carries, all ayes. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. We will move on to item number 3A, our work plan discussion. I would like to ask staff to provide a brief introduction of this so that we may continue our discussion.
Thank you, and good evening, committee members. For discussion this evening is an update of the work plan that you all have been working from since you adopted this back in April or May of this year. So I made some updates post the last month's meeting based on the discussion that was had at that meeting. And I'm going to move this. And I will go over those updates and we'll talk about some other items so we can talk about the priorities that you set last month. So you will see here that what I took from the meeting last month was I had presented essentially 2 overarching questions: was to include or not include the 3 additional items, which the Historic Preservation Committee opted to include all 3 of those items in the adopted work plan. And then I had also requested you all to react to staff's assignment of the prioritizations. I hope I got those assignments correct. There was a little bit of conversation around which one should be higher, which one should be lower. And again, think of this as a dynamic document, so we can always change those priorities. But the importance of establishing these priorities is really to focus your energy on a single effort at a time so that we can make sure that it occurs in a timely manner. And I emphasize again, I'll say this over and over, this is a dynamic document. Think of it as a living document. We can make changes to it. We can add things, we can drop things, we can put things in the parking lot if we need to. It's really just a tool for you all to focus your resources and to identify needs where you have gaps in resources of things that maybe we're lacking, whether it be budget, whether it be tools, whether it be professional training or technical assistance. We can get that for you if you need any of that. So
Can I interrupt for just one moment? I just want to
Certainly.
recognize that Committee Member Rivera has joined the meeting.
Thank you, Chair Evans.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Please continue.
All right. So we'll go through this and then we'll get to the end. It's pretty brief this week, or this month, so we'll get to the end and then we'll go back and address the corrections and changes. So what I did in this slide is I put them in order by, as I mentioned last time, I would put them in three categories: high priority, medium priority, and low priority. And recognizing that some of those will be ongoing, there will be ongoing activity, and sometimes they might change. So what I did here is I prioritized the A. What I heard was A, what I heard was B, and then what I heard was C. I would note that we've got 5 or potentially 6 under top priority items with the oral histories, May 26th, Historic Preservation Month, as well as public outreach, communication. I'm putting all of that into one big thing. So it is public outreach and communication. That includes the landing page or the storefront for the website. That is something that we'll need to get internal support on. We do have an internal team who does that. That's our events and communications team. So we'll have to have that conversation with them. We do have a space on the website right now where our historic preservation items and our history items live, but we want to beef that up some. And then the other item is the conduct a survey, or either that or updating the context report. And then the last item on there was a top priority, and I noted that item was completed. That was the 100-year centennial celebration. And that came off extremely well. I do want to note that is cause for celebration among us now, because it was exceeded our expectations by the nth degree. I thought I would be talking to 20 or 30 people, and there were almost 160 people in the theater. Thank goodness I couldn't see them, because I would have passed out. All right, then under B items, again, this is how I heard them. If I missed anything, please, we'll go over and recharacterize these, but was a development of historic recognition process or a city assets inventory, development of walking tours, and then archiving of the Cathedral City Historical Society's materials. I've been in contact with them about those materials. It does sound like it's somewhere in the neighborhood of 10 to 20 boxes. They're in a safe location, but we're looking at a pretty broad scope here, so it's not only archiving those materials, but finding them a long-term, I would say, I want to say a long-term home, but I don't want to characterize it that way, because what they really deserve, just like we've heard with the panels, don't want to put them just in storage. They don't do anyone any good there. We want to have them on display, rotating displays, what we really need, and we don't have, and this is just a shortcoming that I want to make note of. A lot of cities who have a historical society or have a historic preservation also have a museum. We don't have a museum, so we're at a little bit of a disadvantage there. And then our lowest priority, as I heard it, was the process for designating historic neighborhoods. All right, so the one thing I wanted to focus on tonight, just to give you a little bit of more of a sense of how this work plan will work in a practical sense, is to take so if I go back to the slide just for a moment, we have the oral histories in the May 26th Historic Preservation Month. I took that item, the second one, the Historic Preservation Month, and broke that out into a separate project, so you could see all the different steps and the resources that are required for that, and put that together here for you. So I have a tentative game plan for this. I want to get your reaction and feedback on this. I did speak with our communication and events crew. I say crew, it's really Ryan and Adam, who are a terrific crew, but they work very hard to make sure that the city has something going on all the time. They do an excellent job. They manage all of our social media and all of our content creation and digital communications that go out. They also really helped us pull off that centennial celebration. Without their help, that would not have been able to happen. So I did talk to them about what does the calendar look like for May, what facilities might be available for something like this, and I came up with this game plan. Again, it's up for discussion. I just wanted to give you all something to take a look at and maybe react to. So a lot of words on one slide, I hate that, but What the suggestion is, and I like this approach, is to narrow it down to a single week in the month. Their suggestion was the week of the 11th. Pick a single topic of focus for each day of that week, so 5 days, work week, and have one focus for each day. These be predetermined at some point in time. We have 7 months or so before we get to this point. But we would pick something potentially, tribal history for Monday, and perhaps Tuesday would be early development of the city, and then perhaps Wednesday, I'm just making this up, just to give you an example. And then maybe arts would be one, and maybe tourism, something like that. And then consider how we want to present that content for each one of those days so that everyone has a little bit of a flavor. We could do it that way. We could likewise, we could do one every Wednesday for the month of May. We post something. I like it every day because then it stays fresh in people's minds versus one day per week for the month. And people, they don't make that connection all the time. There's so much social media out there. And then what it would do, it would culminate in an event on that Saturday where we would have, I can foresee us potentially unveiling a walking tour and putting in there 10 to 12 or even 15 resources on a walking tour, unveiling that walking tour and having even members of the committee and staff go on that walking tour. Normally, these will be self-guided walking tours, but this would be a special event. And then sometime probably in the late morning or the early afternoon, we would do another similar, not the same type of screening that we did for the Centennial event, but maybe 2 bookended events with a panel discussion in between them. So maybe a 20-minute video, a 30, 45-minute panel discussion, and then another 20 or 30-minute video. And so it would culminate in sort of this Saturday event that would be kicked off with an unveiling of a walking tour. So that's one way to look at it. I mean, this is the plan that I think would work. It's nice, it's bite-sized. We have received such tremendous support, terrific engagement on the Centennial celebration. People love the stories, they love the history, they love the photographs. As a matter of fact, up here on this table, if you didn't have a chance before the meeting, come by after the meeting. I have some, this was Charlie's collection. City manager Charlie McClendon, he donated those to me. He said, I'm not sure what to do with these, so I'll leave these for you. So he gifted those to me on the almost eve of his retirement. So please come up and take a look at those before you leave today. Anyway, that's what that looks like. I'll just keep going through here because, like I said, it's really quite brief. And then what we have for that, so I've identified the resources that we do have. We have planning staff to provide guidance and project management of the event. Events and communication will provide support in the form of social media, making sure we've got the support, assuming we would do something like this again with the Mary Pickford Theater, which is a terrific natural partner for this, and they're very willing to do something like this. And then the Historical Society is also willing to support. And the one thing I did not add here, and I apologize, is also to include a panel for this. We weren't able to get the panel, secure the panel for display for the Centennial in time for the Centennial, but we would still like to do something like that. And then what we need is ongoing participation of the historic preservation community members outside of meetings. It's not a big amount of time, but it is a commitment, and then follow-up. Any questions on that? I know I went through that really quick and it was a lot of information, and it's already in my head, so I wanted to get it out here and then ask if you have any questions. I know we had talked last time that this kind of was our most pressing priority. If we can kind of get this piece situated and rolling, then we can work on some of the other pieces in the work plan as well. But I wanted to get your reaction to this. And then I'll go on to, I think this is what this is the examples of the tasks. Again, sort of what I described, one topic each day for the Historic Preservation Week. So that might include looking at photographs, picking the photographs that get selected, picking the text, drafting the final edits of which words go in, which words go out, which pictures go in, which pictures go out, evaluating potential sites for including on the walking tour, doing some of that background research or helping with some of the background research or contributing to background research, compiling the accompanying map, brochure, or document that results from that, and then maybe looking at selecting panelists for the panel discussion. So those are what the tasks break down to. A lot of times when we're talking about an event, it's very conceptual. So I broke it down into very, I think, much more tactical, practical steps. And I think that is, yeah, that's really the end. And then here are the questions that are for you this evening. And of course, there's anything that you'd like to add to that or discussion. We can certainly go back to any of that and talk about that more. Get clarification or. Okay. I'll turn over the chairman.
Thank you. Are there any questions here? I like the outline of the plan. I like the idea of focusing on a week. And, you know, obviously we have some time, but we all know it passes very quickly. So are there anybody else in the committee want to speak to the action plan the staff has outlined?
Chair, may I?
Of course.
This is fantastic. Thank you, Cynthia. I think this is a great work plan. I really like the idea of 1 week. I want to propose to us all an idea. Do we want to maybe narrow this further? What if we did, I'm hoping that this will be an annual event. Maybe there's a theme each year so that we're not trying to encapsulate the entire history of the city. Maybe 1 year is the Agua Caliente presence or native presence in the region. Maybe 1 year is Hispanic culture. Maybe 1 year is LGBTQ plus influence. Maybe 1 year is artists' influence, something like that. What do folks on the committee think about narrowing it? Or do we think that celebrating everything is the best way?
I like a broad brush approach personally, although I think that there's a place to do deeper dives on each of those topics. There's a lot of history here to cover. But I like, particularly since this is kind of our first foray into it, heading into May to kind of focus a broad brush and touch on each of these topics without necessarily getting too deep into each one of them. And maybe think about theme years in the future when we have a little more time to, run up time for it. Also, by the way, I want to say thank you to members Knox and Heckman for being at the event last month and the support that they provided. That was terrific.
Thank you.
I heard great things about the event.
Thank
Ditto.
you.
Definitely ditto. Thank you.
I also want to say a huge thanks to Cynthia Schultz for all of the work that went into that. I'm blanking on the gentleman's name who made the video.
Oh, Parker.
Parker, yeah.
Parker Knott.
And the whole team did an
Yeah.
amazing job on
Yeah.
that. It was a really well-run event.
It, and it always, I come back to this, it has to start with an idea, and the ideas usually come from you all, and then I just take it kind of and run with it and go, okay, I need assistance, and that's exactly what I'm doing here, so I hope you're picking up on the theme. So, but thank you.
Could we go back a slide to the Historic Preservation Week?
Yeah, this one?
So one topic. So if we're doing a large event on Saturday, when we say one topic for each day, what is being done to celebrate those topics? Are we thinking that that's a social media campaign? Is it like the Digital Digest, or I forget the name of the e-blast?
Discover Digest?
Discover Digest?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I think there's different ways we can envision that. I know that the Discover Digest is a established rolling weekly. It comes, I think, on Thursdays, or is it Fridays? It's Thursday or Friday. It comes out every week, and I think that the content for that is already sort of predetermined, and then it's rolling content that gets written. But I think what we can do is come up with content that would be displayed on the either the Discover Cathedral City site or on our social media. So I know that we are active on Facebook and I believe it's Instagram. I'm not a social media person, but we do have sites that we are active on. So we would be creating things like little photo montages and information about that. Just brief, as brief as possible, not a 10-minute long video. That was a big lift, and thank you very much for helping with that. But it'll be brief information, but there could be some little videos that are, TikTokable. For the girl who doesn't know social media, I know what TikTok is. But something small, snippet, easily digestible. So it keeps people engaged, it keeps people interested, even people who don't know. I encounter people all the time who say they don't know anything about historic preservation in Cathedral City, and I think we're all aiming to change that.
I have a quick question. So how does the Agnes Pelton House fit into all of this? Because in my opinion, I think that this is a pretty fair point, that this is one of the most significant historic sites in our city, and it should be a part of all of this.
Yeah, and I guess,
there is a huge resource there in the house, in the artwork, and there's a huge resource of research that the owner, Peter Palladino, has compiled over the years.
Yeah, and I think your question is probably a two-part question. So to get to the first piece of that question, how you want to incorporate that, you could have one day just devoted to it. For those of you who don't know, or for anyone watching this video, the Agnes Pelton House is the city's only designated landmark as of today. We could dedicate a day to that. You could do this is up to you how you want to do that. If you want to dedicate an entire week to that, you could. But I think that comes back to how is it that you're using this item in your work plan to help spread the awareness or raise the awareness around what's a designated resource in this community? How does somebody go about getting something like that? That's the first step in that, is to say, this is what it is. Here's a picture of the marker. Here's a little video, maybe a video if Peter Palladino, he's usually very willing to participate. If he was interested in doing a brief introduction or an interview, something like that, video of what that was like, to display that on the website, that's a possibility. So really, the options are quite endless. I'm sure they're limited, but there's a lot of different options that you all could take. You would be able to decide that. And I think in the next few months, you'll want to start deciding how you want to do that, because you'll probably have 3 or 4 months in which we'll want to be creating the content that goes with the sort of flight plan or the plan that you lay out. So if you say Monday is the day we're talking about tribal resources, Tuesday's the day we're talking about the local landmark, you'll want to start creating that content when you get probably 4 months out.
One of the things that I think could gain a lot of traction in the Agnes Pelton House, as a singular person, or probably the most notable person to live in Cathedral City, but because the art community is, throughout the Desert Valley, there's a lot there. And I think it's something that Valley artists could kind of come together and support, and maybe create some kind of an event, an arts exhibit that is all-encompassing of the Desert Valley. But, it could be called the Agnes Pelton Art Festival or something like that. I don't know. But I think it's something that it's kind of a rallying point that could bring in a lot of people. For all the time that I've invested in this committee from its first inception, so many people that I run into, really? Is there a historic preservation committee? Are there really historic things that have happened to this city? I get that all the time, and so many people just have no idea.
Right.
But I think drawing the art community into it, that could help, really set off a storm.
Well, and we do have, the city does have the Public Arts Committee, the PAC.
Oh, understood.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
not my committee, but the staff liaison for that, and I speak a lot about the natural sort of overlap between historic preservation and public arts and other things as well. And I think it's very important for us to make sure that we can collaborate together. And I think that there are, so if you, I mentioned it at the Centennial. August is also Miss Pelton's birthday. It would have been her 90, I don't know, maybe Ari knows, 90-something birthday I could be very wrong on that. I apologize. I might be wrong. She had a birthday in August, and I mentioned that at the celebration, but that might be something that could be a standalone. It's the first map was recorded in August, and Agnes Pelton's birthday was in August. It might serve as a standalone celebration in August as well. There's nothing saying that May has to be the only month, but
I think it's an appropriate time to draw attention and to celebrate. I mean, it is the one asset that we have that has been designated, and I think it's correct that we could draw in the art community to help bring more awareness and make it a bigger event in May,
yes.
if we had a focal point on the house.
Yes. We did, I was going to point out too that there was a broader than Agnes Pelton focus. I really did a lot of research, putting that video together so that we made sure that we were trying to be more inclusive of other artists. I searched as far as I could. There's not a whole lot of information out there, but I searched every resource I could find on local artists to find who was out there. So I think there is a bigger conversation to be had about that.
It could be worthy to do so, because I like what you're talking about doing like the frequency, to just maintain relevancy. It could be something that we do some type of event quarterly. So if we do this in May and then June, July, August, something for Agnes Pelton or something for the art community. And during the content slide, the last thing was other. Do we have any plans to highlight our more interesting past? I don't know what the best way to say that is, but because I think that there's a following or a community that would love to just hear more details about some, like what we talked about the last meeting with the gambling clubs and stuff like that.
I think that's probably one of the areas of highest interest.
Yes, yeah. I would agree with you only in the sense that people were so fascinated and so excited about that. I mean, we love our history, but boy, when it's a little outside the lines, so to speak, people get very excited about
The
that.
illicit stuff always draws more eyeballs.
It does. I mean, there's no
But
there's no shame.
it is a part of the history of the city, and I don't think it's anything we should be ashamed of. It's just part of the history of the city.
Yeah, exactly. It's part of our story. It's part of our story.
Well, years ago, when the Glory to God Ministries Church was built on the former site of, or the site of the Pompeii's nightclub, there was always rumors of a basement gambling room. And during demolition, sure enough, there it was. Yeah.
It's remarkable how true much of that history is.
Yes.
I remember that story.
Well, and we've talked a couple of meetings now about the panels that are for sale. I think they're very much still for sale, and trying to figure out.
We were going to inquire about the price point.
Yeah, and I think the price point, I think she mentioned $5,000 per panel, and I wanted to do the math. It's like $135,000 or something, $130, somewhere in that neighborhood. But there's other work, and I've mentioned this to the owner as well as to Justin, that there's some other things that we probably want to consider with that. But again, it comes down to what are we going to do with them if we get them? just like the materials from the Historical Society. I really want to get my hands on it, but I don't have a place to put it. I have a really small cubicle, it's not going to fit in there. So what is the plan for displaying them? What's the plan for curating, speaking properly about them? Because everything should have some sort of interpretive description, signage, what have you, to go along with it. I know that the Historical Society has an ongoing exhibit at the,
Hampton Inn.
At the Hampton Inn, thank you. At the Hampton Inn, and they get a lot of people who come through there. Well, they have volunteers on their board. We don't have staff to necessarily go over and do that. So we have to think about this in a, how can we do like a rotating event where we maybe have a curated table of materials that have been selected and we can describe them in some sort of an educated manner where we're not just taking guesses at what the origin is and what the year is and what its significance. We know a little bit more about the artifacts and we can talk about them along with the panels. The movie theater makes the most sense for where we might display the panels, although we can't display them all. We could rotate them and we could have different events where we would have them there. But, that's probably a further down the road conversation than maybe where we are today. But we could plan for that or try to have those conversations, wrap that conversation in with the event for May.
Cynthia, just because it sparked my interest, Miss Agnes Pelton was born August 22nd, 1881, passed March 13, 1961 at the age of 79, and that would have put her at 144.
Okay, I don't do math well in public, thank you.
Thank you. What else do you require from us? I know this is just a discussion point, not an action plan, but what further steps would you like?
So what I'd like, I think on the Historic Preservation Month, is I would like, ideally, similar to what we talked about with the application process, I'd like to have a subcommittee of 2 or 3 people who would be interested in sort of serving as my contact people, so that when I'm doing something like picking topics for each day, I can run that by somebody else so I'm not making all the decisions. Whatever comes out of the city is going to be city-produced material. It's city-researched, it's city-produced, it's city-authored, even though it's a team effort that goes behind it. This is a team. This is all together, all the way around, it's a team. And a lot of times there's 2 different shots and I'm not sure which one works better, so I like to have an extra set of eyes. So that's what I'd be looking for, and then just some guidance if you want to make edits or changes to this. Again, this is something we could try out in May, and we can see how it goes, and we can learn as we go along. I hope that it does become an annual event.
Would we like to designate a Historic Preservation Month subcommittee at this point? Solicit volunteers for that?
I think that would be, I'm looking at Ms. Clerk to make sure that that's okay if we do that. Is that?
Absolutely, the chair can ask for volunteers, or you can appoint somebody.
Okay, well, what I'd like to do is establish that committee with this as a working outline that they can then further refine and make additions, subtractions as the subcommittee sees fit. Are there anybody who would like to volunteer for that subcommittee to help plan this? It's a hard no, I see.
Sorry.
That's quite all right.
All right.
Great.
There we go.
There we go.
All right. Thank you.
Okay, so
Appreciate
for the
that.
record, I do have Vice Chair Knox and Committee Member Heckman, correct? We have a consensus?
Correct. That is
Thank you.
correct. Thank you.
Terrific. That is,
I would also volunteer. I don't know that I can sit in on every meeting, but I'd like to help participate.
and I want to clarify too, this doesn't necessarily exclude anyone else from the planning or the discussion. It's to have point person A and point person B. And that's really to save me my sanity. So I appreciate that.
And just really quick, Chair, just so we can be clear, we have a subcommittee, it can only be 2 members.
Okay.
So those discussions can happen between the 2. It cannot be shared with other members. You have to bring your discussion here for the full group to join in on that, okay?
Understood, and thanks
If you'd
for the
like me to
clarification.
share something for the committee to review, go ahead and send it to me. I'll send it to them for review only. Thank you.
Thank you.
And perhaps the best way to maybe do that is to bring back an update for you at each meeting. And that's kind of how I envision doing this with the work plan anyway. The work plan is really kind of your homework. It's what you're kind of working off of. So I can envision it occurring that way.
Well, I want to thank you for the hard work. You put a lot of effort into the work plan. And so you've given the subcommittee a lot to work with. So.
Good. I just need somebody to say yes or no, and I will work. We'll work for answers. There we go. So that was the first item on this. I wanted to also check back with the group and go back through those priorities and make sure that they are generally are in the proper order. I did have a question on the archiving of the Historical Society's materials. I put down an A-B on that. I wasn't sure if it was an A item or a B item, but I kept it under Bs just because you have so many A items as it is.
Can
We'll
I
move the one off there, but
Can I chime in on that one? So I've been working with the Historic Preservation, the Cathedral City Historical Society, and I helped them apply for a grant for Revealed California. They have two series of grants. One is to catalog the archives, and once that's done, then they will digitize all of them and make them publicly accessible. So we should hear back if we've received the cataloging grant, which would be $3,000 for someone to go in, $3,000 plus archival materials, binders, folders, and things like that, so that we could get them into a shape that next year we could apply for the digitizing grant. So I say that in that that does kind of represent a few steps that we've taken, so we could make that a B priority. Now that we'll have to wait to hear on that grant. That grant funding, I believe, is for the first half of 2026. It might be the entire year. I don't exactly remember. But that is to say that given the timeline of this grant and this digitizing process, it sounds like it could take up to 4 or 5 years to do all of the resources. They won't take 10 boxes at a time.
yes, it is a very, I'm glad that you pointed that out, because I always feel like the bearer of bad news when I come up here with the big, long laundry list of here's the little 1 hour event that you're having, and it's this many steps. And you just pointed out that it does take a lot of work and a lot of effort, and I've also talked to them about what all is involved in that, and California Revealed is really the way to go. So, but I'm going to keep making notes. I think because it's in your work plan to do this, and it's also in the city council's strategic plan to do this as a city effort, is that something that we might appoint or ask Vice Chair Knox if he would be willing to be sort of the chairperson of if you will, another subcommittee that's engaged in this, so that we have a report back to the board? Or is that something that should stay outside of the board?
No, I think that's a great idea. I think Committee Member Knox is fully involved in it already, so, which is very helpful.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, I'm happy to do that. I do just want to state for the record, the Historical Society owns these documents, and they are their resources, so I'm happy to be a point person with them, but in my efforts with them, I'm trying to help them to preserve them. There's no efforts for them to become a city asset, and I just want to make that distinction.
Correct. And I think that has been clear, and I did have a conversation with Margie St. Anthony last week about what is the intent. Are these to be going somewhere? What happens after they get documented and digitized? Then what happens to the actual artifacts, right? They don't go into the ether. They still need to have a home.
Yeah.
So. But I do believe that they're still looking for long-term storage for
Yes,
those.
and a new concept that's come up, we were kind of exploring the library. The library is going to be closed for renovations for a year, as far as I'm aware. A new idea that's come up that is longer term would be the Cathedral City Community Center, if there could perhaps be a space reserved for the Historical Society there. I think the pie in the sky long-term goal is, as you suggested earlier, that eventually we do have a permanent museum for the Historical Society in Cathedral City. But the community center could be an interim place for them in the future. But as you've said, it's a strong priority to them to protect the archives, but also not to let them be hidden away somewhere. Preservation doesn't just mean safety, it means promulgation. I might be using that word wrong, but dissemination, sharing of what's contained in these archives.
People love to see. I mean, it's great that I can show people pictures of old homes, but when you take that picture and then you go out into the streets and you go, wait, I see how they added onto that house. It brings it home when you see someone's face light up when you do that with them, it's terrific. It's a great educational experience, and it is actually preservation. To me, it's preservation in its heart. So bringing it home, making it real.
Okay, is that officially a subcommittee of one that you will work with the Historical Society and be a liaison?
Yeah, sure. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So for clarification, there's going to be an application for a grant to have the assets digitized, but then they will retain control of that, so.
The society's making the application for the grant, not this committee.
Yes, that's what I'm clarifying, okay.
Yeah.
The process is that they are cataloged, and once they're cataloged, you send a certain Excel spreadsheet to Revealed California. Then they pay for the shipping to bring the documents, and then the documents are given back as hard copies and also as an archive and kept on their website. So throughout the entire process, the Historical Society would retain ownership, and that basically it's a licensing agreement to Revealed California, which is a nonprofit, or I don't know if it's a government entity. I think it's an NGO.
It might be an NGO. I'm not exactly sure how they operate.
Me either. I'm going to look into that, but yes, it would retain ownership for the Historical Society.
So I don't mean to say this in any way. I hope it's not taken, there's no offense taken to what I'm going to say, but will the city of Cathedral City have any access to those once that digitizing has taken place and the archive is established? And would it be at a cost, or would it be offered to the city? How does?
It would be everything digitized would be published on the revealedcalifornia.org website.
Understood.
Whether the city would need to do an additional licensing with the Historical Society, I think that's a good question. I'll find out. I don't know the answer to that.
Because it sounds like this is their effort. This is their property.
It's not that they don't want to, they want very much for the city to have it. It's that their fear is that other historical societies have given their archives to government entities, and then they end up in storage 200 miles away and they can't be found, the originals. So I believe it's the intent of the Historical Society to share all of the information with the city and with the community. They were really helpful with Cynthia in licensing or sharing photos for the video. So I believe that there would be no attempts not to share it. I think their intent is to share it with the city. It's more about long-term storage and a fear of the originals being lost.
My experience has been that historic societies from whichever city tend to be very protective, and they're not too quick to share. Just say it that way.
And in speaking with Ms. St. Anthony, I can characterize my conversations with her very much as Vice Chair Knox is sharing as well. You know, they're very, very interested in getting the information out there and disseminating the information. When the city was going through this work plan adoption, I reached out to them and said, you know, the city isn't trying to step on the Historical Society's toes and trying to do their work. The city is trying to use that as sort of a catapult or a springboard to get more into preservation, because I've mentioned numerous times we have one landmark in the city, and if we want to try to promote that, the best way to do that is by showing people what the potential looks like, and the best way to do that is to work with the Historical Society. that clicked, and that's been the understanding since the very beginning. But she also shared that, they are looking for long-term storage for the materials, but as Vice Chair Knox pointed out, we don't have any storage here at City Hall. So we don't want to end up having them put in a storage container and don't know where they are, or they get water damaged or.
And I don't want to, I'm not being critical of it, and I'm not suggesting anything against it, none whatsoever. I'm just asking the question, at the end of that process, would there be any access for Cathedral City?
Would they be interested in drafting a letter of cooperation with this committee that would allow us access without conferring ownership, just allowing them to retain their resources, but allowing us to have access? Could we?
And I think
work-
that's a good question. I can't speak for them, but I think that's a very
but
good question to have.
Perhaps that's something, since you're the subcommittee,
Yeah.
you can float that idea.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just for sake of discussion, I did a quick search of this California Revealed. Once they digitize it for the Historical Society, California Revealed is working to aggregate California's digital collections into a single resource at californiarevealed.org. California Revealed collections are also discoverable through the Internet Archive, Digital Public Library of America, CaliSphere, and the Home Movie Registry, offering multiple access points for potential users, including, and the list goes on of who has access.
So it essentially becomes public domain.
Essentially, once it's digitized, it becomes part of their public domain through that grant process. So the public would have access, including the city.
Yep.
to
Okay.
view
I would
them
assume-
However they would rate.
I would assume that those files that are accessed are probably watermarked unless you have some arrangement through the source to
They are not.
They're not.
They are not.
digitally watermarked, not the originals.
No, they're not. No, I wouldn't call them public domain. I would call them publicly accessible. Everything is going to be subject to potential copyright, which is a whole different conversation. But they're publicly accessible, so people can use them for, educational purposes and for research. If I'm doing history paper in college or high school or elementary school, California Revealed is the go-to source. I used it a lot for my research.
I think it's still worthwhile to pursue a letter of cooperation so that would guarantee us
It's a really good idea.
the access that you're looking for, and I think we all agree we need. Back to your original question about this particular item, I agree that we can move it to Category B because we've made some significant progress, and we have a subcommittee working on it. If I could ask staff, if you would, for the next meeting, reorganize the work plan in A, B, and C. So each of the items is accessible based on priority. And they're kind of interspersed in the current way. I mean, you just applied the category, but if we could just have them in, here are Category A priorities, here are Category B, and here are Category C priorities in the list.
How about like that?
Yeah.
Does that work for you?
I think he means the work plan.
The work plan
spreadsheet,
itself.
Oh, the
If
whole
it could be
work plan.
reorganized by ABC.
Okay. Yeah, and I will.
I mean,
will do
they're
that.
labeled as such, but I'd like to have them ordered.
In order, yes.
Just so it's a little easier instead of jumping around.
For certain. I put it in this format, so it's easy for you all to see at one time.
Any further comments on the work plan?
This is probably TMI, but I'm dyslexic, and stuff like this just makes my head crazy.
Yeah, I have a hard problem with the landscape format too. I have that issue. So
I do have a couple of other comments. In Public Outreach Communications website, I would like us to take a look at the Palm Desert Historical Society's website. I know that they're not a government organization, they're a private or a nonprofit historical society. But one of the things that I find really useful on that site is a very big research your property link, designate your home as a historic site. They have a very clear links to action, which I think is part of the difficulty for our city for designating landmarks for individuals. Finding that information, I think, is a little bit complicated. So I just think they did a really good job of it, and that could be a really good example to look at as we're kind of building our online presence.
And that was Palm Desert. And it's the application process designation.
It's the last link in there, yeah.
Alright.
Research your house. I mean, it links to county websites, so it's not like they built a whole lot, or that specific link wasn't privately built, but it's just a really good layout of how citizens can access the resources to create landmarks as well.
Okay. All right. I may reach out to you with questions on that,
Cool.
but yeah, thank you.
And then also on walking tours, I just wanted to give an update. I had a brief meeting with Mayor Nancy Ross this week about Chuparosa Lane. And there is, as I think we've discussed, in 2023, council approved an action plan for Chuparosa Lane. It didn't end up getting funded, but it is still out there, and I can share that with anyone who's interested in it. I just want to keep that on our radars as a good opportunity for a walking tour. There are a lot of historic properties on Chuparosa Lane, most notably the Agnes Pelton Cottage. And as we explore designation of public resources, the murals on Chuparosa Lane, several of which are by Peter Palladino, several are by other artists. I think those are a intangible or tangible resource for our community that we want to keep and encourage and celebrate. So as we're exploring walking tours, I want to keep Chuparosa Lane on our radars. And yeah.
You said there was an action plan for,
There is not. I'm unraveling threads.
Okay.
There's an approved, yes, there was an approved design. It has some photos, some architectural stylings. One of the coolest things about it was the proposal to create a mock-up of the arch that used to be over 111, which would be the entrance point to the Chuparosa Lane. But it fell through because of funding and also because there are some private driveways that enter the lane, so making it a pedestrian-only space was problematic. So there's a lot to be explored there, and I'm going to keep trying to explore that. But I can share that 2023 plan with you if you're interested.
I think we should probably plug that into the walking tours portion of the work plan, if possible, since it exists.
We'll put that on my subcommittee's task list.
Okay.
You're already in place, so perfect.
Great. Yeah.
Any further comments? Staff?
There's nothing else from staff. Is there anything that the committee would like to bring back for further discussion or future agenda?
Hello. All right, now I can hear myself. I did have one comment. I think it would be remiss of me not to use this platform to again publicly recognize my staff member, Parker Gaunt, and the hard work that he put into producing or helping to produce that video, and also the hard work Cynthia and the rest of the city staff put in. But I just definitely wanted to shout out to Parker. I know you're watching, Parker. But yeah, great job.
Yes.
Here, here.
Absolutely.
It was a great job. Parker was there. I made an announcement before. I had a whole screen full of announcements that it was Agnes Pelton's birthday, former city council member's birthday, lots of announcements, but to shout out to Parker, that was his big screen debut. Parker works in code compliance, and all the code compliance people have full-time jobs, but he took the time to work on that, putting that together, so that was terrific. And then the voiceover that you hear in that video, if you've heard it, you might not recognize the voice. That was Ryan. So that was Ryan Hunt. So it's hard to recognize his voice. So it's
Well-
definitely a team effort here.
I do have one item. If we could take another shot at scheduling another subcommittee between myself and committee member Hunter Copper?
Yes, reach out to me.
Okay.
We'll do that.
Can I throw one more curveball too? And I don't know where it fits on the work plan. At one point, we had development of historic recognition of city assets resources. I know this is category B. We've talked about Margie St. Anthony, who's not president, but she's a board member of the Historical Society. She's also an incredible mosaic artist. We have a huge mosaic tradition in the Lower Cove. Both Peter Palladino and Margie St. Anthony are wonderful mosaic artists. And Margie's the one who created those birds that you see all around the neighborhood. They're on mailboxes in different parts of the Lower Cove, and I think the Upper Cove too. And I've heard that some of them are getting destroyed by vandalism. I wonder if there is some way to protect that resource, and if it doesn't fall under, it's not a landmark, it's not a place, it's a multiple small items all around the neighborhood, but it's a really characteristic part of the neighborhood. So I don't know what we can do to protect something like that, but I think it falls under preservation of city resources and assets that are outside of a landmark or a neighborhood.
Might fall under the Arts Commission purview.
Well, and this is a tough one because I don't think it falls under their purview because it's not a public art, it wasn't commissioned as a public art piece, and it's all private property. So the only place it might fall is if it was, and I'm going to step in your territory, but in code compliance, there's oftentimes if something is a code violation, but I don't even think this triggers that as well either. So I'm not sure where it might fall. Maybe we can have a conversation about where that might fall. It's really a private property thing.
Maybe it's not even a recognition. Maybe there's multiple walking tours, and one of the walking tours is see all of the birds of the neighborhood, and we just have a list, and you can go around and see them. I don't know that every homeowner is going to want people coming and taking selfies in their front yard, but that's one of those difficult to protect resources that I think is something that makes our city exciting. And I want it to stay on our radars if we can.
Well, I think it's important you put something like that on the radar and it gets on people's radars and people all of a sudden it's a beloved treasure in the city. It goes from something that maybe they didn't recognize or didn't notice until now it's a resource. So it's good to bring that up. Let's talk about that one. All right. Anything else?
I can speak from experience. There's good and bad that comes with that. When we lived in our previous home in the Panorama area, let's see, it was 24 years ago, I had built the 14-foot replica of the Twin Towers in my front yard. And it attracted I was taken by surprise by the attention it got. These were 14-foot. They were built in concrete. They were white, and they were lit up at night. And it was touching because sometimes people would leave flowers, other things. But then there was some kind of a scavenger hunt online game that this was something that could be found, and no one asked our permission, but every now and then there would be people out there with a small spade digging around the bottom to find whatever the artifact was for the scavenger hunt.
Yeah. Yeah. Geocaching.
Yeah.
It is always a double-edged sword when, when you're dealing with private property owners, walking tours, and, access to private space versus public space.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. All right. Well, that's it for me. I think I have some homework to do. We'll bring this back to you for the next meeting. I'll make some amendments. I might actually change the format of the, I think I heard some making the work plan a little bit more easy to understand. If you want to
it's a
send
bit
me your
unwieldy
comments.
in its current form. I mean, I understand, but maybe there's something we can do to make it a little more streamlined.
Yeah, there's probably better ways to make it easier to read. So if you have specific comments, I welcome those. So
Okay.
I'll work on it otherwise. All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you, staff. Is there anything further? Then we are adjourned.
Chair Evans, I just want to note for the public, I did not receive any public comments for the item. We do have one member of the
We
public,
do have one
I
member of the
believe. Miss, would you like to make a public comment on that item we just discussed?
I just came to, like, if there were any questions that I could answer.
Fair enough. Thank you. I thought I would ask. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Then we are adjourned.